we go. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Good afternoon. Really great to have everyone again. I know it's been a little bit of a delay or a while since we've had a webinar, but really glad that Olivia Harris could join us today from Northeastern Admissions. And definitely we'll have a bit of a conversation and followed by Q&A. If you've been here before, you kind of know what this works and what this looks like. But definitely, if you have any questions or any thoughts that you would want to kind of let us know about, feel free to put it in chat. Feel free to put it in Q&A for later on, right? If in the chat, definitely, if you could let us know where you're calling in from, that would be great. This way we get an idea of also, we're expecting a lot of Bay Area folks, but potentially some people from the East Coast. And this will give Olivia also an idea of, who she is chatting with today. But Olivia, can I leave it to you to introduce yourself and then Azure?
Yeah, totally. Hi, everybody. Good to meet you all. My name is Olivia Harris. I am an assistant director of admission at Northeastern. I use she, her pronouns. I've been at Northeastern for around a year, but been in college admissions going on year 4. So super excited to have a moment to chat with you all tonight.
Hi, I'm Azure Brown, and I'm the president at Illumin. I'm also an educational consultant and work with students. So thank you for joining us, Olivia. Can you tell us a little bit about what your specific role is at Northeastern? And you told us a little bit more maybe about your background and how you got into admissions.
Yeah, totally. So when it comes to my job, I'm assistant director. So I kind of just manage all different elements of the admission process. I work in particular supporting students from Northern and Central California, some elements of the Bay Area. I share you all with my colleague, Mark Donnelly. I also work with students from Arizona, New Mexico, and Shanghai. So I've got a lot of students I get to work with. It's my job to be a resource to you throughout this whole process. So for the fall, as you all are applying, I'm out on the road, introducing to Northeastern to new people. Then once your applications are in, I sit on a committee and review those applications with my colleagues to kind of assess fit. And then come the spring, after admission decisions are out, I'm there again answering questions, helping students figure out, if that enrollment deposit at Northeastern is where they want to go. Like I said, I've been doing this for 4 years. Prior to that, I myself was an undergraduate student. I found myself at a crossroads come graduation. So I had a job offer down at Capitol Hill, totally different lifestyle. But I love people. I love the admissions world, the processes. So kind of drew me in, and I've just been around ever since.
That's great. And, could you share a little bit about what students love about Northeastern? Like what kind of sets Northeastern apart from other schools? We have so many seniors right now that are making college list decisions. So it's really good to hear from you. What does Northeastern offer?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say there are a variety of things that students love about Northeastern. And I always plug, I didn't go to Northeastern myself. We do have ways to connect with current students if you want that student perspective. But from what I hear from students and what I've acquired just being on campus, there's 2 main elements that people really love about our institution. So the first being definitely our location. We're located in Boston, Mass. If folks haven't had a chance to travel out east, definitely recommend Boston. Amazing city, a big college town. Our campus is squared away sort of in the Fenway neighborhood. So we have our own college campus. When you're on campus, we have those traditional green spaces, but then you kind of step off and you are in, again, the heart of the city. So students definitely love that element. It adds a lot to the experience. The other element that brings a lot of students in is our commitment to experiential learning. So kind of the process that Northeastern takes when it comes to how instruction occurs in the classroom and outside. Some examples of how this shapes up is we have a ton of study abroad opportunities, tons of research, service learning classes, and we offer CoOp. So that tends to be a very big ticket item. CoOp, if you're not familiar, it's where our students go out and work for 6 months at a company of their choosing. We can get more into it later in the program. I don't want to run off on CoOp, but definitely that experiential learning piece and then our location tend to be the 2 biggest factors.
Yeah, CoOp is definitely a huge factor for a lot of our students who are looking to get, kind of start their resume before they graduate from college. So yeah, let's definitely talk about that. Can you share anything about the Northeastern admissions process? One thing that stands out to me is that you have a main personal statement, you're using Common App, and there's no supplement essay. So I've asked you recently, students wanted to know, should I change my main personal statement to be more about my major? Or, and so I just wanted to ask, what are you looking at and what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I'd say big picture, we have a pretty standard process in place. So you'll find us in the Common App and the Coalition app. We require everything you expect, right? So that college essay, just that, no supplemental. We also, of course, transcript, looking at your areas of rigor, 2 letters of rec. We are test optional, so we can definitely get into that too. I can hold that for now. But when it comes to when you're making decisions around your essay or your application in general, we don't include an additional, additional statement from you. We don't have a why Northeastern question because oftentimes, it's the answers aren't always super informing. We usually get more out of your main essay. So I don't recommend changing your whole essay just for Northeastern. If you want to, power to you. But ultimately, the essay that you're submitting to other universities, we're looking for the same things in that, right? We're just trying to get to know you in a way that we're not already seeing on your activities sheet or in your transcript. It's another space to sort of introduce yourself, and it doesn't have to be just for us. If you want to, it's okay. If you want to explain your interest in a major, add a little paragraph on, totally fine. But we don't really need it.
Okay, great. And how would you describe what a strong essay is?
This is my favorite question as an admissions person, I think, because everyone answers a little bit differently. So I'll start by saying that you're going to hear a lot of opinions and thoughts as you're writing this. I think the best essays are, first and foremost, they've been read many times for little things like grammatical errors. So there's none of those little low-hanging fruit. Those already taken care of. But ultimately, like I said, they introduce something about yourself that I'm not going to know anywhere else. My favorite personally are when a student will walk me through maybe a project or an action they've taken. So they've noticed something in their community and they've done something about it, and they can kind of showcase themselves to me by telling me that story. That being said, though, I love to read too about students who are talking about their future and maybe things they haven't accomplished yet, but they're giving me a view into their interests. My biggest piece of advice would be, as much as I love the essays that are talking about an inspirational person in your life, if you are going to write about someone who's had a profound impact on you, whether it's a cousin, a teacher, a coach, a grandparent, those are wonderful, but just make sure that it centers back on you. I love my grandma. She is amazing. I could write an essay about her, but if I were applying to college, my admission counselor is not going to be considering my grandma June for admission. They're considering me. So keeping it centered on yourself. But again, I think really, as broadly as it is, writing something that we're not going to see anywhere else. That's the best way to maximize that space and share an additional fact about yourself within the limits of an application.
What about for students who, maybe for the year and a half when there was shelter in place, they feel like they didn't have as much of a chance to develop their resume? Do you take that into account when you're looking at sort of the activity list?
Definitely. Yeah. So it's always a conversation in our office. Fortunate for you all, you're not the first applicant class to kind of have that experience. So we're used to it. We're used to seeing gaps. I'm pretty sure in years past, the Common App has launched an additional section to write about impacts of COVID. I think we're keeping that this year on there. I haven't looked myself, but if you want to take that space to maybe share about how it's impacted, you don't have to use it to write, an essay on why you couldn't do things. We all lived through COVID, so we all had that context. But we definitely consider that when looking at that activity sheet for sure.
And what else are you looking for in a candidate when you're looking at the resume and sort of, their personal statement? Are there certain qualities you look for in a student?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, to give you kind of like the behind the scenes view in our admission process, the first thing we're looking for at every student is on the transcript. So your academic rigor. We want to make sure that when you come to Northeastern, you'll find success in the classroom. We admit you to graduate. So that's the baseline. But then when we're looking at those other more personal elements, so personal essay, that sort of thing, the list of activities, we're looking for sort of 4 core values. And those, maybe not 4. We're looking for the value of you're a student who exhibits that when you come to our campus, you'll engage in that experiential learning. So you're a student who will come to campus and will go abroad. We have so many abroad programs. You're someone who will take advantage. You're a student who will come to campus and be interested in CoOp. You're kind of a go-getter in that way. You're looking for a non-traditional undergraduate experience because that is what Northeastern offers. So we're looking for those core things. Every university looks for different things, but ultimately we're looking for someone who will be academically successful, but also on top of that, be incredibly engaged outside the classroom to kind of maximize everything that we host on our campus.
Good. And so when you're thinking about academically being, looking for clues about, if they're a good fit for Northeastern, they'll be successful. Are you looking at a certain number of APs or honors courses or anything around that?
I would say the beauty of our the realm of applications we get applications from all over the globe. So we're not so much, fuddling around on the numbers of how many exact APs. We do like to see students who take a broad course load. So students who take APs in a variety of subjects. You're not just the history person, you have APs in other areas too. We do look for a level of rigor. So we definitely look for APs, but if your high school doesn't offer them, that's okay. We have context. Your guidance counselor sends a school report that you'll never have to worry about, but it comes to us. We can read and see that. So we're just looking for students who kind of maximize their high school education so we can be assured that, again, when you arrive to Northeastern, we have plenty of tutors and supports, But you'll find success. Even if you need some support, you're in the right fit for you.
Thanks. And then what do you think is the most misunderstood part of the admissions process?
So this is something I've been thinking about a lot this year. And I think it is early decision and how it can be a tool to you if it works for you. So early decision, of course, is when you apply to an institution, you submit a contract with your application saying, if I'm admitted, I'm attending. Students always ask me, does Northeastern consider demonstrated interest? How can I demonstrate interest? Early decision is the ultimate way to demonstrate interest. That being said, though, it's a massive commitment, right? You are saying, if I'm admitted, I'm attending. So you have to make sure where you're social fit, financial fit, academic fit. But if you're, after this webinar, as we get closer to those deadlines, if Northeastern is your number one, ED is a great tool in your back pocket. If you find that we're fitting all those things. I will say too, not every institution does this, but we offer early financial aid reviews for students considering applying ED to get an idea of cost before making that commitment. But if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you don't need to take time to kind of sift through different offers and see, if you find that Northeastern or another institution is your fit, early decision is a wonderful tool. But if it's not where you're at, don't worry about it. You don't have to use it.
So applying ED is really greatly going to help your chances because of that commitment.
I would say, yeah, because that is the highest level of demonstrated interest that we could ever see from an applicant.
And what about SAT and ACT? What part did they play this year?
Yes, so this was our second cycle being test optional. We're of the mind that if they're not on the application, we are not thinking about them. So we're not wondering, we're not sort of, reading between the lines, thinking that your score wasn't proficient. We really are not considering them. We have seen our mid-range is about a 1470 to a 1520. I advise students that when you're making the decision, whether it be test optional or not, look at that mid-range, see where you fall. If you feel like your scores don't represent yourself, don't send them. We don't need them. We can't unsee them once they're on the application, so they will be a factor we consider. So that's my recommendation, keeping that in mind. When it comes to how we look in the broader picture, they're all different factors. Everything we're talking about is, the essay, the activity sheet, the high school transcript. If you think about your application as kind of a pie chart, each of those are slices in the consideration that we make. If you think your test scores are strong and you want to add that slice, add more attention to another element of yourself, send them. But if you don't worry about them. We're going to look at everything else. That's our focus.
Okay, great. And what do you think? I mean, looking back in the last few years, it's clear that a lot of things have changed. So as someone in admissions, what has changed for Northeastern is,
I would say the funny thing about Northeastern is we are always changing. We are known kind of as being innovators and we move fast. I think speaking about our admission in particular, the popularity of our pathway programs has increased. So when you apply to Northeastern, you can sort of elect to apply directly to the Boston campus, or you can apply to a program known as NUN or Global Scholars. These are 3 types of admission decisions. And they'll be in your application, you can check a checkbox. If you check a box, we consider for that pathway. So Boston is just as it sounds. You come your first year, you live on campus, that's that. NUN is a program where you're admitted to Northeastern and you spend your first semester abroad at one of our partner locations. So we send about 350 students each to these locations for the first semester. Then you move back to Boston. That third program is Global Scholars, and this is where you spend your first year, so your freshman year at Northeastern, studying at our London campus, Northeastern London, or our Oakland campus, Northeastern Oakland. My advice is to explore the 3 options, because if you're interested in multiple options, that's wonderful. We have more ways to say yes at that point as an admission committee. If you're not, though, definitely don't put them, as you can't change that decision. But if you are someone who wants to get abroad and you would be a great fit, you check that box, you'll hear back from us, you could be admitted to NUN. So I think that's been a change for us, is students seeking out those pathways and having excitement around them. And we have admitted about a third of our class through those. So they're, it's good to become familiar with them, because they may be in your future if you're interested.
So if a student puts down one of the pathways, but they really want to be considered for the main campus first, is that how it works? Or if you see the pathway, are you going to go to that option?
I would say, great question. If you check the boxes, you'll be considered for any box you check. And when we review you as an applicant, we are looking at you for certain characteristics. So a student that gets admitted to NUN is not identical to a student that is admitted to Boston, in the fact that we saw something where the student sort of showcases some leadership, some independence, the ability to go abroad. We see qualifications that fit NUN. that maybe wouldn't fit a Boston student. So I would say, we don't have a ranking system. So if you check the box, you'll be considered. It doesn't mean that if you check NUN, immediately you're going to be NUN. It just means, we'll look for qualities and see if we see them in you, and then perhaps you could receive that as a decision.
Okay. Okay, and then we better talk about co-op. I know that there'll be lots of questions, but it seems to be a main topic when we're talking about Northeastern. So what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's different. It's different. It's the way that we were founded in this whole idea of cooperative education. So at Northeastern, when you arrive to our institution, starting the second semester of your sophomore year, you have the ability to go out for 6 months and work as a full-time employee. So during those 6 months, you're still a student at Northeastern, but you take no classes, you pay no tuition, you work 9 to 5, and you're getting that hands-on experience. It's entirely structured, entirely supported. So when you're coming in as a first year, you'll have your academic advisor as well as a co-op advisor, and they work with you the semester prior to your first co-op to prep you. So you take a class with them, they teach you how to write a resume, they walk you through the application process. All the co-op employers are partners with the university. So these are just positions open for Northeastern students. You're not competing with anyone else except for Northeastern students. You go through the application process, just like a job interview, and then you're ultimately offered a co-op position, hopefully your first choice, and then you make your way out on it. So it makes our institution a little bit different because you're not in the classroom for all 4 years all the time. The system is built so you can graduate in 4 years and do 2 co-ops. So you can go on co-op twice, 2 6 months, graduate in 4 years, or you could do 3 and graduate in 5 years. It definitely brings an element of kind of movement to our student body. We have students who are coming to Boston for a semester of classes. Their coworkers, their peers might be headed out on co-op at the same time. You can also do co-op in Boston. You could do it anywhere in the US or really anywhere in the globe. So actually one of my tour guides is headed out next week to Paris to co-op in the embassy. So you can do with it what you want, entirely structured, entirely supported. But ultimately our students graduate with a year to a year and a half of professional experience before being done with undergrad.
Can you think of any examples you can share of what that co-op internship would look like?
Yeah, so it can be a variety of things depending on where you land. For example, we have co-ops in our office, admission, people who are interested in admission. They work staffing or managing all of our tour guides. They manage a program of over 100 students doing scheduling, all of this. They sit in on admission committees. So I think what everyone wants to know, they know, they're part of us. We also have a student who was just picked up by Amazon Robotics. So she was there for 6 months. She was working in the lab doing actual coding. So it's a lot more hands-on. I'll plug this too. If you want to get a really detailed vision of what co-op looks like, depending on your major, if you go to any college website for Northeastern, there's a whole slew of co-op examples. So that is always the best place to go for those resources, but it varies depending on where you want to land.
Great, that's awesome. So the last few years have been, it seems like every year there's record-breaking numbers of students applying to schools like Northeastern, and last year was really tough for a lot of students. So I'm just wondering, do you have any general advice for this year's seniors? Is there hope? What can you say about this coming year?
Well, I definitely want to say always hope, always have hope. I totally hear that. It was a huge year for us. So we received over 92,000 applications. That was up 15,000 from the year prior. So great, because we're seeing so much interest in our institution, but it does lead to some really tough decisions for our admission committees. I would say I can't predict this year just yet. We'll see who applies and how many. But my biggest advice I imagine you've all heard this before, but building a list. So not putting all your eggs in one basket. For us at Northeastern, we're looking for students that fit the campus, again, and admitting for graduation. The pathways are always great because it enables us to bring in a bigger class than our Boston campus right now can hold facility-wise. So I would say maybe to sort of navigate that, exploring and making sure that the institutions you're applying to, you're applying for the right reasons. So I know, in the 92,000, there are probably folks that applied to Northeastern that didn't know anything about us. I think it's to your advantage to learn, details and nuances of institutions, apply to ones that truly fit you, to sort of have the outcome that you're looking for. But totally recognizing, it's definitely a challenging process to navigate, especially when you get into those sort of selective admission areas. But no, definitely there's hope. For context too, we over-enrolled the year prior, so we were a little bit more limited with space. We're not seeing that as being a factor this year. But definitely, again, just building that college list where you have a variety of institutions is my biggest piece of advice.
Well, that's really good news that it might be a little better this year. I guess the last thing I wanted to ask before we kind of go over and look at the questions that are coming in is, so it sounds like you do consider demonstrated interests. Is that correct? And in what ways can students demonstrate interests?
I would say Northeastern we do. So it is something we consider. Does it always factor into the admission decision? It's not really the largest factor by any means, but some great ways to sort of, we love when you engage with us. We love when you get to know us. That's what demonstrates all interest is all about, making sure that you know about Northeastern. You're not just applying because you saw it on some list or something. The best ways to engage are definitely if a representative happens to be visiting your high school, it could be me, could be my colleague, Mark. If you have the time, stop by the visit. A general rule of thumb, anytime you're engaging with an admission professional, whether it's at a fair or high school visit, fill out those inquiry cards. I know they're annoying, but it's great because it helps us, again, kind of remember, oh, I met so-and-so on your file. If you find yourself in Boston, come see campus, kind of a win-win. You have the ability to visualize yourself, see if it's a fit, see if you like the city. And then, of course, we have online offerings as well. So when you sign up for a virtual event at Northeastern, we have our colleges host monthly update sessions or monthly info sessions. That's always good too. So those are great ways to do it. I would say don't book out all your weeks with every Northeastern event ever. I would never advise that. But yeah, definitely use it as a tool for yourself and know that it's something that definitely is looked at. Not the biggest factor by any means, but.
Good to know. Good to know. All right, Anthony, do you have some questions for us?
We have a lot of questions to go over, so we'll go through this. Let's start with the abroad and the other admissions options. I think a lot of folks have a little bit of confusion around there, but I think just in general, just restating the idea, it looks like there's generally 3 main paths to think about that process, right? It's NUN, which is the abroad program, the Boston campus, and then if I remember correctly, I believe the Oakland and London campus are evaluated as separately as well. Is that correct, Olivia?
So yeah, I'll break it down. I will say too, if you go on our admission webpage, they're all outlined as well. I know it's not super common amongst institutions. We're a little bit different the way we do it, so definitely check out our webpage. But so Boston, that's where you start on the Boston campus from your first semester, first day. NUN is where your first semester you start abroad at one of our 8 international locations with all other Northeastern students for the first semester. Then you move back to Boston your second semester. Global Scholars is that last program. That's where it's your entire first year. You study either at our Oakland campus or our London campus. So think NUN semester, international only. Think Global Scholars year long at a Northeastern campus. So the partner campuses are wonderful. We have long-term relationships with them for NUN. Global Scholars, Northeastern campus, NUN semester, international campuses.
Sounds good. Okay, hopefully that clarifies for some folks. And I think there was also a question of like general idea of admit rate between those different programs. I would assume they're all relatively similar. Do you know if that would be the case?
I don't have a specific breakdown. I would say definitely similar. All programs end up being selective again because of the volume and the seats. NUN and Global Scholars are great though, like I said, because they give us more space than the Boston campus allows for. Definitely all selective. I will say that 7% that was published, that represents the Boston start or the folks who start on the Boston campus. So maybe that, that could be good to know, to think about. They definitely are selective, but that 7% again was just the folks starting in Boston.
Sounds good. And a question about NUN. It seems like back in the day, maybe like everyone was put together in a major and they all go to a particular location together. This person particularly mentioned engineering students went to Greece. Do you know if that's still the case, or if there's you kind of get put in or how they would determine those cohorts?
Yeah, so it is somewhat based on major, but sites, so we call it site capability, what majors they can host based on the faculty and facilities they have. Students have at least 4 to select from. So there are 8, and then depending on your major, you have at least 4. I know like our nursing and engineering students, they are typically limited to the 4 sites to select from, but then our undeclared and a lot of our business majors can kind of go within the 8. So you will still have choice, but you will have some limitations around the program that you select.
I see. So it sounds like for example, if I'm going to go through NUN program, I might be a little bit more restricted on location. Is that right? Of like, maybe I only have Spain and Greece open to me instead of Germany or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. And a question of, again, it's like these three options between NUN, the main campus, and Global Scholars, they're all effectively separate admit decisions, right? There's no way to change one to the other.
Correct. Yeah. So whatever offer you receive from us, it's final. So yeah, exactly.
And it's not that, I guess it's like getting in one does not necessarily mean anything about the others, or not getting into one doesn't necessarily mean about anything about the others, right? They're all separate.
Right. Right. Yeah. So if you let's say that you wanted to do NUN more than anything in the world, and you're admitted to Boston, you cannot switch. So they're separate programs. We look for separate qualities, and you're admitted based on those qualities.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. A question about the Oakland campus. I think some folks are also having a question about, like, would you have all 4 years at Mills? Or what are the options within kind of going in that direction? And potentially also, it sounds like the London campus would be similar to an experience at Mills. Mills is the campus, in case everyone.
Yes. Yeah, Mills is our now it's Northeastern University Oakland. But so actually this brings us to a really interesting conversation. So let's separate. So there's the admission decision pathways, right? That's NUN, Global Scholars, Boston. We just recently merged with Mills College, as well as our London campus. So now we have campuses in Boston, Oakland, London. This year, coming into this year, we are launching full degree programs in Oakland and London. This is brand new, so you're all getting some really new information right now. So you will have the option, if you want to apply to the Oakland campus, straight up, just Oakland, stay there for 4 years. That is entirely separate from NUN, Global Scholars, and Boston. Same with London. If you want to go to London for your whole undergraduate career, you could. But again, they'll be very, very specified on the Common App. You'll know what you're applying to. If you have any questions, give us a call. But those are separate. So you could hypothetically go and spend 4 years in Oakland, but that's separate again from NUN. I know it's a lot. We love complexity and choice at Northeastern. There are pros and cons to it for sure. But yeah, so those are the options there.
So can I ask, when you're in, you just go into the Northeastern app on Common App or Coalition, and all of these options will be in there, including the 4 years at Mills?
Yes. Yep. So let's say you do decide, you're like, you know what, I love Oakland. I want to stay in Oakland, or, I want to go to Oakland. You'll check that box. Our team will still read your application in Boston, and we'll make your decision. But if you apply for 4 years at Oakland, you'll get a decision based on that.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about the hypotheticals now. Could you do something like NUN in, let's say, Greece, go to the campus in Oakland, then say, no, I want to spend some time in London, and then maybe spend your senior year in Boston? Is that reasonable, or is that a path that would need to be trailblazed by a very adventurous student?
I would think trailblazing would be appropriate, and I guarantee we'll have someone. I guarantee. There's a running joke that there are some students that don't even touch the Boston campus till junior year, because they'll do NUN and then they stay abroad and then they go like a global co-op. But from where we're at now in this very new process of having our Oakland campus, I am not sure how it would look. I would say if you're interested in that, definitely send me an email. I can share my information, or just you can email admission@Northeastern. We'll find the answer. But right now, not 100% on that one.
Okay, got it. And I think there was also just questions about, like, yeah, is it really possible to balance co-op with all this study abroad and things like that? So yeah, just wanted to have a chance to clarify that.
Yeah, definitely. So the way that we do it, we have a lot of offerings. If you're not gathering that, we have a lot of offerings. So the way that students will often balance going abroad, co-op, all these sorts of things, especially if you're in a more like a program like nursing, we offer study abroad in the summer. They're called Dialogues of Civilization. They're 6-week programs. You travel with a faculty member for 6 weeks. You earn up to like 2 classes worth of credit. So you could do a dialogue, and then of course then go on co-op. So it is manageable. Always recommended to meet with your academic advisor and sort of plan things out. But again, it's sort of built around the way that our academic system works. So you could do it. I would say if you wanted to do a full semester abroad, though, separate from NUN. So let's say like a more, junior year, senior year, like that sort of abroad experience, and a co-op, you'd want to plan it. But that's kind of the beauty of global co-op. So you can kind of just put them both in one. You could do, if you really wanted to go into it, you could do a research co-op abroad, do 3 types of experiential learning in one 6-month period. So it is possible. Our academic advising team is pretty robust. There's multiple within each college, and they're there for these sorts of questions. So it's good to come in with an idea of what you want to do, but there is some flexibility around when you would do it.
I see. Awesome. So also considering, yeah, maybe using your summers in a way to also explore and kind of see different options.
Yep. And I will say too, at Northeastern, we offer shorter summer semesters. So if students want to bulk up on classes and then, kind of shift things around, we have 7-week semesters, summer 1, summer 2. Our spring semester ends in April, so we're way earlier than a lot of other institutions. So if you stay for summer one, you're still out by like late May.
Let's see. Questions around, I think also questions around majors, whether that is somewhat limited at Mills in London and the other kind of NUN as well. Pretty much any major can go with for those different options also.
So for Oakland and London, they will be a little more specified. We're working right now to kind of build out the Oakland programs. You'll know that when you're applying, you'll know if it's a fit for you. Oakland will be probably very engineering, computer science oriented, whereas our London institution is a little more based in the humanities. I would say for anyone, you're not limited. It would just be what area you could then go to. So for example, let's say Greece doesn't have the capability to support nursing students. You couldn't select from that as an option. When it comes to the majors, though, hosted the two institutions, they'll be a little more specialized. But again, you won't be admitted to a program that doesn't academically fit your program. So you don't have to worry about that.
Got it. So the options, it would be this thought of like, you'll know the options that are available by the time you're applying, and you won't end up in a place with like no other computer science students or no computer science faculty.
Right. Yeah, no, that would be, no, we do a thing called summer checks to make sure nothing's happening. So if you didn't notice, we would notice. So no worries there.
Let's see. Questions also. Oh, go ahead, Azure.
I just thought of is Mills is traditionally a women's college, right? So is it, so the Mills campus is now co-ed or is it still women's?
So it's still co-ed, or excuse me, it's now co-ed, no longer only women's. Yeah, so we made that shift.
Okay, thanks.
Can you do a campus tour of that Oakland campus right now? Just given we have a lot of folks in the Bay Area, do you know if that's a possibility?
I would say so, not right now. I would say within the coming months, most definitely. I would say for anyone folks too that want to get more recent updates, if you're not already on our Northeastern, if you go to our page and fill out a virtual inquiry form, you'll get updates from us as it's coming out. But definitely, it'll be available pretty soon.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's see. I'm going to give me a moment. I'm going to try to sort through the questions really quickly. See. Oh, yeah. Question around majors, right? Of thinking about changing majors and the flexibility of the curriculum. If you could highlight that, Olivia.
Yeah, definitely. So when you apply to Northeastern, you will be asked to put a major on your application. You can put undeclared. That's totally fine. We have an Explore programs, 2-year program. You can come in, not have a major, totally fine. We do a thing though, where we admit you to the university versus to a specific academic college. So you have the flexibility to change. So if you apply as engineering and then a week before orientation, you decide that sociology is a better fit, you have the flexibility to change. Same if you arrive to, a lot of our students talk about how they make those changes early on, so it's not uncommon. Our core curriculum is called New Path, and it allows you to kind of explore and change. So you have some time and you have the flexibility.
When do students declare their majors?
It's required to be declared by the end of sophomore year.
So it sounds like there's a bit more flexibility before you get to that deadline at the end of sophomore year.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's not, yeah, so it would be for the entire university instead of a particular program major type thing. So,
yeah, no, exactly.
Awesome. Let's see.
I'm wondering, like, with all the different pathways and options, is there any concern about students who are going to miss out on their freshman year on the main campus? What about opportunities to bond and kind of have some continuity with the students around you?
Yeah, no, definitely. It is definitely something that I hear a lot, especially from students who, are admitted to NUN and have concerns around that, or global scholars. We find that you build really tight relationships within those cohorts. So a lot of our NUN students come back. Of course, they all come back to Boston together, and they're tight. The nice thing is too, because we have such a moving campus, folks are on CoOp, then they come back. The continuity is kind of just consistent. So we do activities fairs, for example, the fall semester and the spring semester. So those are always ongoing. You can join an organization halfway through the year. The model of the institution is very much kind of built around that moving around. So let's say you spend your first semester in Greece, you come back to Boston for that spring semester. You can join an intramural team. You can join these different organizations and kind of find your community. And we have different programs to support you when you come back. So definitely all addressed.
Good.
A question about combined majors program. Can you elaborate or just let us know a bit about it?
Yeah, totally. So we do a thing at Northeastern. A combined major is a program where you're studying 2 different areas of study, but graduating with a singular degree. different than a double major. The way that we structure it is so you spend 1/3 of your classes studying one subject. So I always like to use the example, computer science and theater. So it's a combined program, 1/3 you're studying computer science, 1/3 of your classes, your schedule, you're studying theater. And then the remaining third are classes designed specifically for that program. So they explain the connection between computer science and theater, how to build a career on those two interests. So the double major is where you're just, you're trying to complete two separate programs. A combined major is you are learning two separate things, but the program is built to be, connected, to connect them together versus doing two separate programs. You're doing an integrated program. So we offer those in addition to single majors as well.
Got it. And can you highlight some common combined major pathways? It sounds a little bit different than, for example, building your own curriculum, if that for
Yeah,
building.
no, exactly. Yeah, I would say it's very structured. We actually offer, so we have three main focuses in our core college computer science. So computer science, data science, the third is escaping me. Someone can fact check me later on that. But those three majors all have combined options. So a lot of students will do computer science and business. Also a lot of business programs, business administration and economics is a popular combined major. Computer science and theater is new. There's definitely some students in it. But yeah, I would say there's a variety with those.
Cool. Let's see. Question about music supplements. Is that something that would be evaluated if you're applying as a music major? And also, would you accept a music supplement for non-music majors?
That is a great question. So typically, so kind of thinking about, so we have our College of Art, Media, and Design. The only major we require any sort of supplementation or portfolio is architecture. That's the only one. The rest, we don't need one. So for music, we don't actually have any performance majors. So if you're thinking about, actively studying, violin in college, we might not be a fit. Berkeley down the street is a wonderful institution for music. But if you're applying to just a general music major, we don't need it. If you want to send it, you're welcome to. But otherwise, we'll consider it if it's there. It won't be a large element of the consideration, but we don't require it.
Okay, I see. Perfect. A question about, do you know roughly the population of what's planned for the Oakland campus and these different, the different admit programs?
So I don't have the numbers in front of me just yet. I would say as the fall kind of continues on, more and more will come out. So if you're interested, particularly in Oakland, again, you can reach out to me, reach out to us. I'm not sure the size just yet.
Okay, got it. Wow, there's a lot of, the questions are getting more and more complex around the global scholars and things.
That's okay, I get it. I totally get it.
Basically, the question, I was reading, it took a little bit, but is there a way to state yes, for example, the London campus and no to the Mills College campus? Or is it simply a placement around, again, as you were saying, like majors and what's available given the campuses, or,
So in years past, what we've done, this should likely be what we'll do this year, but we've allowed students to pick. It's first come, first serve. So of course, once you have your mission decision and you enroll, you're able to select between London or Oakland. There are some caveats, majors, so those programs. If your major is not supported at the London campus, obviously we're not going to recommend you spend a year there, so you won't be allowed to. But if you are in a program where you have the option to select, you have until the seats are filled in either campus to select from.
Okay, got it. And are there any, do you know any majors off the top of your head that would not be supported in London or Mills or NUN or anything like that? I'm just wondering, are there any specific majors that's like, I really want to study philosophy and it's going to be really tough for me if I'm going to look at these alternate pathways?
I would actually say for a lot of our programs within a lot of our, I don't want to say not technical, but a lot of our humanity-based programs, business, they have more flexibility typically, just based again on facility offerings, especially in London. Sometimes we see with computer science students, we have recommended in the past, like the Oakland campus. So thinking typically more computer science would be a little more restrictive. But then come NUN, because all programs are abroad, we have offerings within that program. So global scholars can be a little tricky maybe, but NUN, you have a little bit more flexibility there.
I see. Okay.
I will say too, I know this can be a lot, especially talking about this so early in the process, but once you get, once you receive an admission decision, if you check the box you want to be considered, we walk you through this. So we'll let you know in your portal, it will say you are eligible for Berlin, London, and we had Glasgow this year was super popular. Like you'll see it, we're here to help. So don't feel like it's like take notes or know this, we're here for that. So
That's neat. You get to make a decision within a decision also of like, oh, where else do I get to go?
a lot of, like I said, a lot of choice.
Yeah. Let's see. Good. Okay, great question here. How do you determine fit for any of the alternative pathways? Is there anything in particular that you're looking for reading those types of applicants? And also, would it be different committees that would evaluate each time, or do you know roughly what that process looks like?
Yeah, so great question. Committee wise, same committee. So, I'll be helping make decisions for students for Boston, NUN, everybody. When it comes to what we look for, again, NUN, we look for students who express interest in getting abroad. Maybe they have experience, maybe you've had a study abroad program in high school, recognizing COVID's occurred, but maybe you just have some experience with abroad, or you're super, that's what you're geared toward. Maybe your essay is super like, I want to see the world, this and that. For global scholars in the past, we used to sort of consider students who maybe were looking for a smaller environment to begin with, a smaller, sort of community. With Oakland being another campus, I imagine we'll sort of tweak that. But global scholars, we typically look for students who demonstrate leadership, who definitely, again, small community, that could change, but I would say that for now. Yeah, those are the two bits we look for.
Can I ask, is there any language requirement for any of the campuses that are abroad?
So they're totally in English. All of the courses are in English. So yeah, no language requirement there.
It's really nice.
Let's see. A question around, I think this was also like a CS portfolio of projects. If you have like a link in an application, will that be considered at all?
Ooh, so I recommend not sending any links. Again, every institution is different the way they review. I typically try to avoid links. So I would say if you're able to take a link and maybe, make a PDF out of it, we prefer PDF documents, or, just documents in general for our process.
So if a student wants to upload a resume, is that possible in the application or the portal?
Yep. So once you submit, the Common App or the Coalition app, you'll have access to your Northeastern portal. Within there, there's an area where you can submit supplemental. It'll be labeled supplemental. You can submit a resume. Some students will, maybe that's where that sort of portfolio element will come in. You can submit those through there as well. But yeah, in that portal.
Okay.
Good. A question around impacted majors of like, yeah, if thinking like how easy it is to switch between CS or going into CS, I think is the common one that a lot of folks are interested in. And another kind of question, because I think you mentioned that architecture was one that required a portfolio. Is that also a program that you could swap into later on, maybe your end of your freshman year or something like that?
Yep. So you know what? I have to double check on the architecture requirements. So let me not speak on that tonight. Definitely on our website. But again, I can also just send out information afterwards. Yeah, so let me check on architecture before I speak on it. But all the rest are totally flexible.
Okay, got it.
We've had more students, or I've happened to, maybe it's anecdotal, but I've worked with more students who are interested in nursing. And I'm just wondering, because not every college offers nursing, if you could speak at all about that program at Northeastern.
Yeah, so it definitely is a popular program for us. It's housed in our Bouvet College of Health Sciences. I would say what makes it a little bit different is, even though it is a very, I don't want to say restricted, but a major that often keeps students tied to campus, it has that Northeastern touch where you can get abroad, you can do co-op. Northeastern's a great place for it too, just based on location. So we have, all the benefit of having all the hospitals in Boston, and they're very intertwined. Professors kind of overlap, kind of straddle the line of professor and, still active in the field. So I'd say that would be what makes us different from a lot of other nursing programs.
Could I ask what a nursing co-op might look like? And I guess this is another like tangent, but like if I'm studying, again, say computer science, how likely am I to be able to get a co-op that's away from that, right? Maybe if I'm interested in also politics, right? And I would want to work in a political office or something like that.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely doable. Just thinking of an example, one of my current admission co-ops is a math major. So his day in, day out is math, but he likes, he had an interest in higher ed and wanted to kind of get a viewpoint on it. Nursing majors, again, a lot will go into the hospital system, kind of in the nearby area. But yes, you're not necessarily tied to a co-op based on your program. It is often advised to make sure that all this time you're spending academically is preparing you for a field that you enjoy, but you definitely, you're not required to do a CS co-op if you want to do political science or explore that.
And if I remember correctly, there's a bit of flexibility on also the number of co-ops you could do. It's like anywhere between 1 and 3. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's actually, the funny thing is it's not required unless you're a business student. So all business students at Northeastern have to do at least one co-op, but the rest you're not required to, but about 90% of our students do at least one. So you could do one, that's just 6 months there. You could do 2, graduate in 4 years, or 3 and elect to graduate in 5 years. I would say back in the day, it was more popular for students to do the 3 and graduate in 5 years. More recently, we're seeing a lot more of students just like knock out the 4 years and call that that.
Are the co-ops paid?
Yeah, so about 80% are. I have a tour guide who likes to joke. She just was on co-op with our state attorney here in Mass, and they're not paid. So she always likes to like make a plug about that, but most are paid.
Oh, go ahead, Azure.
No, go ahead.
A question about, who teaches the NUN courses? Are they NUN Northeastern professors, or are they instructors from a European university? And also a question of like, how difficult is it for them to integrate that back to the curriculum at Boston when they come back after the semester?
So I would say, starting with the second part of that, NUN is built so you're not falling behind. So the classes you're taking, they all come back. We do, well, actually that's more, so global scholars, we do look to make sure that students have at least a C in the classes before they come back to Boston to make sure that that works. NUN, they are typically European faculty members. If you're at the London campus, if you somehow end up there for NUN, which you will have some Northeastern faculty, but you do get the opportunity to sort of have that more traditional study abroad where you're able to connect with European faculty.
I did not even think of that also, of like you could do NUN, end up in London and still have a larger cohort, I guess, with the campus at Northeastern, the London campus there also.
Right. I will say, we always say literally that no two students have the same academic experience. And I can guarantee, like, it's not a lie, it's true just based on the pathway that you take and the interest that you kind of chase.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that now. We're kind of hearing the different options. So a question around, I think we haven't had a chance to touch this topic yet, but also of transfer students. Can you also highlight like what that process looks like? Being a transfer applicant and getting them ready?
I would say it depends on the year. So like, for example, we didn't accept any spring transfers this year just because of our class size. So we're very dependent on how our university is kind of supporting the community we currently have. But otherwise it's pretty traditional. So we are accepting applicants. We look for the same sort of qualities, honestly, that we look for in undergrad. So we're looking for students who maybe they arrived to a campus and they got involved, and we could see them doing that in Northeastern as well. A lot of nuances go into it. We have a whole transfer team that supports you within our office, so it's a little more specialized there. But again, for us, it just depends on the year. And you would see very easily if you went to our website if we were accepting transfers or if we were not.
Do you like to see for transfer at least a year of classes? Or let's say someone is starting as a freshman and they're like, oh, I wish I would have applied to Northeastern or gotten in. Can they apply that early? It's this fall.
I would say that is doable. We're not necessarily looking for a full year. Of course, looking for how performance was in those courses and how they'll transfer. But I would say whenever it feels right, that would work.
That's good to know.
I think also another opportunity to touch on the early financial aid review. I think that question, the question is also like, is merit aid also an estimate there, or is it mostly a
Yeah, that's a good one. So merit aid is actually not at all mentioned in that early financial aid review. So I would say whatever. So when you go through this process, we'll run this process through usually to like late October. We'll still accept information. So if you're kind of on the fence, you want to have an early read, we have a website where you'll submit your information to our financial aid office. They'll give you an unofficial package, but it will give you an idea of what the cost of Northeastern would look like exactly. But it will not include merit aid. So definitely a good thing to know.
And can you also talk about like how merit aid would be reviewed, or also any like honors college options like that?
Yeah, so when you apply to Northeastern, automatically, you're considered for honors and merit. The way I like to frame conversations around merit is kind of think about it as it is an extra level of competition on top of admission. So we typically award around the top 10 to 15% of the applicant pool merit aid, and that can range quite a bit depending on the applicant. For the honors college, when we're reviewing your file, again, we're looking for those same characteristics. We're looking for admission, kind of go-getter. And then we, depending on what the cohort looks like, we find students that demonstrate they would succeed in honors college. Nice thing about honors too is if you're not extended an invitation to the honors college, upon admission, you do have the ability to apply into it going into sophomore year after you have a year of Northeastern grades. So, it's not over if it doesn't happen that first time. You can apply later on.
Let's see.
Do you have any information around how much merit aid that Northeastern awards?
I don't have like a particular, I don't have a range offhand. I can definitely dig around, see if I can pass it along, but as of now, nothing that I have.
Okay.
I think a question around the flexibility of the Global Scholars Program, making sure I'm getting my terminology right, Oakland and London. It sounded like, because we were talking about like 1 year and then potentially Boston, is there flexibility around also like potentially 2 years and then 2 years in Boston, or is it only 1 or 4, if that makes sense?
I would say, if I haven't said already, the beauty of Northeastern, like I said, we innovate, things change. Where we're sitting now, this Global Scholars Program has traditionally just been 1 year. So it's just the 1 year. And you come back to Boston. Granted, we just, Oakland is new to us. So it might change in the future, but as of now, Global Scholars is just the 1 year program. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Okay, sounds good. And got it. I was going to ask a question, but I think your question answered. The question was basically, does the diploma indicate the campus where the student studied, or will it simply say Northeastern University? I think that sounds like a TBD also of.
I will say the conversations I've heard, just Northeastern, from what I've heard. Of course, again, if anything changes, I'll let you know, but should just be Northeastern.
Got it. Sounds good. And let's see. Again, we have so many questions. I'm trying to also group things to be a little bit more broad ranging instead of like really specific questions. Of course, I'm sure you can contact the admissions office if you have a specific question about, because I'm getting some questions about about this program and the courses that I've taken, if that's applicable and things like that, right? But definitely that's a bit more case by case, right?
I would say if you want to kind of surface level, we accept AP, IB, all of that. We look for scores, APs, 5s and 4s, and then IBs typically like a 5 or 6 for credit. I would say 2, but Anthony, you're totally right. Like email the admission office. We can always get you more specifics, or at least get you a link to a web page that you can kind of dive into.
Sounds good. Let's highlight the kind of the question says, can you provide info about student health and safety in the international locations, res life? What does housing, dining look like? And so there's another question earlier about like, is it for the 8 places, it's specific campuses or partners, and like what would an experience be like in a given location?
Yeah, so I would say, so the way that NUN works, we have staff who train here in Boston all throughout the year. And then when students go over for their semester, the staff go with them. So they're sort of like resident directors. When you're at a university, you have the resident advisors, the students, and the resident directors are full-time staff members that support the resident advisors, keep everyone comfortable, everyone safe in the residence halls. So they go over, they're there as resources. And of course, we have, all these are fairly long-standing partner institutions, so they've got their support in place too. When it comes to like the very granular like housing and meal plans, it does vary by campus because they are different institutions. So it's something you'd be notified as you're looking at the process. So like, for example, I want to say our location in Glasgow had a meal plan. Not always common at UK institutions. But again, you would see that information as you're making your decision around which campus you want to go to. But and staff go to every campus.
Let's see. Couple questions left. I'm getting a lot of CS questions, so I'm also going to get this one thinking of, I'll ask a couple versions of these questions because they're all sort of related. I'm dead set on studying CS and okay with any of the pathways. What would you recommend? Would Oakland in general offer probably more support around CS or CS and design and these combined majors? And then also the final version of this is also like, how easy is it to get a class or for CS if I'm going to be potentially like waitlisted to try to get into something that's super popular or something like that?
I would say, okay, so starting with CS, different locations, I would say if you are truly interested in, potential global scholars, NUN and Boston, it's a wonderful place to be at, because like I said, if you we have more ways to say yes if you're interested in more avenues to Northeastern. So that's awesome. And again, computer science doesn't limit you. So I would say that's a great spot to be in. I would say authentically decide, if you want to check those boxes and you're happy with any of those outcomes, go for it. When it comes to classes, so let me hold on. Oakland, you'll have plenty of support. It's a Northeastern campus, so you'll have access to the same supports that we have in Boston when it comes to navigating your academic career. For classes specifically, again, you have the academic advisors. A lot of those first year courses are maybe a little bit larger to make sure everyone's accommodated, but you definitely have the space to get the courses you need for sure.
I tossed you 3 in a row and you hit all of them out of the park. I was just kind of thinking like, oh, let's just talk generally about computer science as well, right? But yeah, definitely great. And let's see. Final few minutes. I'm trying to get something together.
I'll plug too, if you want to talk to, I know it sounds like we have a lot of computer science people in the room, and if you want to talk to faculty and advisors before applying even, email admission@northeastern.edu your questions, and we have colleagues that we can connect you with, and they can answer much more than I can when it comes to the technological aspects of that.
That's good. I think a question around, I think this is also like more of a social kind of question of like, how do students integrate coming back to the Boston campus after their first semesters at NUN?
Yeah, so I would say that's where that multi, the semesterly activities fairs are great. You'll also be living in university housing when you come back, so you'll have a roommate who likely did not go on NUN with you, or they could be at a different location. So you'll have that integration within your residence hall. You'll also live in what's called an LLC, so it's a living learning community. It just means that your floor is themed. So there's a theme to your floor centered around a main interest. So you'll have that. You have that in common with your neighbors. The floors do programming. So, like for example, one of our popular floors, they're called the Foodies, and they just like to try different foods in Boston. So that's their programming. They go to different neighborhoods all together as a group. So you have you have the housing, you have the clubs and organizations. You'll have NUN specific support too. So again, you're all coming back. We want everyone to be acclimated and happy. So you'll have an orientation to the Boston campus when you get back to. So plenty of, and same for folks coming in sophomore year from global scholars. Same supports are there, and the fall everybody's new. So there's plenty of stuff to help you acclimate there.
Awesome. And I think this is more anecdotal, but I know we had a webinar last year from a couple of Northeastern students. I think we had 4 of them, and if I remember correctly, 3 of them met through the NUN program and basically kept in touch for I think when we talked to them, they were either rising juniors or rising seniors. So it seems like that program itself, the people that are in it are pretty close knit and kind of continue together. So
yeah, we definitely see that.
Awesome. Let's wrap it up there. There's still a lot of questions, right? And again, I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, but of course we are a bit limited on time, can't get to everything, right? I guess, Olivia, do you mind kind of letting us know also, like, where can we go for, either getting in contact with admissions or kind of any other kind of additional questions for
Totally. Should I throw it in the chat? Is that helpful?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you our admission@northeastern.edu email. I give this one because all staff are in it. So we're all in it. You get answers quickly. I would say start there. If you have anything that you want to connect with me or Mark specifically on, that email is a great segue too. So that'll get you there as well. Yeah. So I'd say send emails there. And again, we can get connected with staff, current students. Any questions you have, we can get answers from that.
Okay, sounds good. So definitely, yeah, admission@northeastern.edu. So we will leave it at that. I want to point out one thing also that I am quite, I don't know if happy is the right word, but just something different about today's webinar that has not happened before. We did not bring up test optional, which I think is a big thing, because we were, I guess, so busy thinking about all the different other opportunities there at Northeastern. We weren't worried about a 4-digit or 2-digit number, right? So I think it's also great that we are able to highlight so much. But of course, if you have any questions about test optional, I'm sure admissions@northeastern.edu will be a great place to get started there. So perfect. Thank you, Olivia, for joining us today, of course. And yeah, Azure, of course, thanks for taking the time as well.
Olivia, thank you so much for answering our many questions. It was really helpful.
Of course, yeah, no, thank you both. And I wish you all luck on the process, find the right fit. You'll definitely find the right school for you. So it'll pan out.
Thanks, everyone. We'll also have a couple more essay webinars coming up. If I remember correctly, I believe, yeah, we have a couple coming in between now and pretty much beginning of September. So stay tuned for that. You'll get an email. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.